I love Star Wars. I really like the movie. And when I say Star Wars, please understand what I mean. I do not mean the abomination that came out in the 90s. I mean that tacky, really bad graphic effects things that started in 1977 and went through till about 84, 85. When was Jedi? 85, 86?
I want to say it was an even year.
Sorry?
I want to say it was an even year.
You want to say it was an even year? You've got a 50-50 chance.
No, it is.
Now, there's a couple of things I learned from Star Wars. What do I learn from Star Wars? You do what's right, you fight evil, and you save the princess. And that's all you need to know. In Empire Strikes Back, which personally I think is one of the greatest movies ever made, it's a big call, I know. You learn that even scoundrels can do the right thing for no personal gain. And even scoundrels can give their life to serve other people. I don't mean the abominations that George Lucas reproduced in, to release, to make more money before he brought out the first three, which are just rubbishing on. So, for example, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, when in Star Wars, A New Hope, Han Solo is in the cantina bar, and Greedo is there. In the original, Solo shoots first. Greedo is a pain. He is going to cause Han to miss his appointment with Luke and Obi-Wan, and he's going to take him to see Jabba the Hutt. And so, what's the easiest thing to do? Blow Greedo away. And that's what Solo does. In the re-release, for some reason, George Lucas thought it was a good idea to chuck in, a flash of light to say that Greedo fired first, because he wasn't comfortable with saying that Han Solo was a rogue who just wanted to murder someone to get him out of the way so he could go make money. Now, what's wrong with that is that's exactly the sort of person that Han Solo is. And from movie 1 to movie 3, he goes from this self-interested, I'm only going to rescue the princess if she gives me a lot of money, person to someone who is actually leading the rebel forces because that is the right thing to do. George Lucas sold out. A friend of mine, whom I respect very highly, says, if it was possible for, intellectual property to carry out a restraining order against its owner, it would happen in the case of Star Wars. Why am I saying this? What I loved about Star Wars is how neat it was, how clean it was, how direct it was. You saw exactly what Solo was like, and he changes from the first movie to Jedi. And then, for some reason, Mr. Lucas went back and changed who Han Solo was. And he decided that he needed to have more and more funny. Anyway, I'm going to spend hours talking about episodes 1 to 3. He's actually changed the story. He has taken what was originally very good, and I mean very, very good, and tweaked it so that it is politically correct. He's taken something salty and tasty and made it bland. And so I don't think it's actually worth having. Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot." It took me ages to get this. I thought, salt. How can salt lose its saltiness? Because I'm thinking, the Stax table salt that, my mother-in-law has this massive thing of. I never use salt, but she has this massive thing of salt that goes on everything, right? how can that lose? Like, it's impossible, isn't it? But rewind 2,000 years back, and they didn't have nice, neat, clean, you know, white table salt, sodium chloride. Not potassium chloride, that's poison, isn't it? Maybe. Okay, don't have potassium chloride. So they didn't have that. So you've heard of the Dead Sea, called the Dead Sea because nothing lives in it because it's so salty. What they would do is they would scrape up salt from the Dead Sea, but they didn't just get salt, they got everything. And so they would rub that into various parts of food and stuff, and they try to brush off the stuff that wasn't salt. But when you have that in a jar, it's possible for the salt to leach out, you know, from moisture and stuff like that. It would just dissolve in the moisture and then go. And so all that you're left with is the rubbish that you picked up with the salt. And so Jesus says, are you going to use that? Of course you're not going to use that. You're going to take it because it's rubbish and chuck it out. You know, the best thing you can do with that is burn it. The easiest thing is just chuck it out. And so I originally I knew what he was saying about Christians, but I didn't get the analogy. Friends, think about us. What Jesus is saying here is there is something which is distinctive about Christians. There is something about Christians which is different to everyone else in the world. And that's important. That is there for a reason. We're about to find out what the reason is. He says, and if it loses that distinctiveness, if a Christian loses that which is so different about them, then they actually don't serve the purpose that they were there for. What is the purpose of a distinctive Christian life? You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. What's the most famous city on the hill for these guys? It's Jerusalem. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under a bushel basket, but on a lampstand. You think about it. You go, it's a bit dark, that's why I'm going to turn on the light. Oh, I don't like the light. I'm going to cover it. That's ridiculous. You wouldn't do that, would you? You'd be crazy. Especially if the light that you've got is a fire. Remember, we're talking 1st century here, not 21st century. And Jesus says, no one does that. Rather, they put it on a lampstand where it can be seen. You put it up high so it casts light over everything. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to the Father in heaven. Don't lose your saltiness. And let your light shine. And you'd think that this was a no-brainer, wouldn't you? You'd think that Christians would go, of course, I'm not going to lose that. In Revelation, Jesus says to one of the churches, you've lost your first love, which of course is Him. And here Jesus is saying, don't lose that which is what makes you different from the world. Because if you do, then you're not different from the world. And you have no light to shine. And you will be utterly indistinct from the world. And you will have nothing to offer the world. And what should be done with you? Thrown out and trampled underfoot.